All right, there you go. This is real satire. So, again, thank you for stopping through and watching. I had a very, very special program for you today on real satire. And I decided to have a guest rather than to have this old dud talking. Oh, milk dud talking. So I decided to call on a friend, a good friend, and a mentor, a brother, an English professor to talk satire with me. He's a good friend of mine, and he goes by the name of C. Lee McInnes, McInnes or McInnes. But C. Lee's been a friend of mine for a long time. I would say about 20 something years. And he's on, like I said, he's a mentor. And I met him when I was living in Mississippi. I lived in Mississippi for about 10 years, believe it or else. And I lived there in Mississippi. And I met so many talented and great people in the state of Mississippi. And that's the God honest truth. I've met so many talented people. It's the home of the blues and everything. And so, there's a lot of talented people coming from Mississippi. I found out that Morgan Freeman is from there. Just a lot of folks. But when I was there between, I guess, 1996 and 2007. That's a long time. But I met him along with several other poets. I walked into a spoken word event at a place called Highlights across the street from a college, Tougaloo College, HBCU. And man, it was great. And I did a poem or two or three or four, since it was my first time. And, from there, uh, Mississippi, the state of Mississippi, inspired a lot of things that I did as a satirist. Became a published writer for the Jackson Free Press, and C. Lee has published some of my works in the Black Magnolias magazine that he publishes. So it's all been good. So without further ado, C. Lee, yours truly. We're going to talk satire. So I hope you enjoy this. It's going to be in three parts. If I can get them fingers right. Three parts. And we're just going to talk satire. It's about 20 minutes for the first part, and 20 minutes will be for the second part and the third part. And I'm going to do the first part this Saturday, and during the course of the week, I'll share with you the other parts. C. Lee and I, we talked a long time. We talked about an hour. And I tell you, man, it was some good stuff. And it's about, the exploration of satire. Okay? So, without further ado, let's go to the discussion as C. Lee and yours truly talk satire. Oh boy, man, it's good to see you, man.
Man, you too,
I haven't
man.
seen you since you visited in
Yeah, I
Atlanta.
was in Atlanta.
Yeah,
Yeah, at
man.
the conference, man. And look, I've been trying to get back, and then what I call that notorious novel C19 shut the
Oh,
world down. I call it. I tell you, you got the notorious Big. I call it the notorious C19. So
yeah.
yeah,
And you know what? All of this, man, when we talk, man, we talking satire, boy. I tell
that's
you.
it. That's
Yeah,
it.
man. Oh man, it's so good. And let me turn this off. My alarm came on. But I wanted to talk to you about satire. I've been wanting to do this for a long time because I remember you when I first met you, David, Jolivet, all the guys with Mississippi Vibes back then over at Tougaloo College.
Yeah,
And I
man.
remember you saying, you're a satirist. And at that time I didn't know, I was just having fun. But that made a big difference for me when you mentioned that. And coming from you as a professor of English and a writer and everything, man.
And part-time Clarksdale blues soothsayer.
Yeah. yeah. You from up in
Yeah, man.
you're from up in the Mississippi Delta, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah. But
But
that made
it was just so easy for me to see because at the meat of your artistry is intellectual engagement, particularly inquiry, right? Your art, when you're making art, you're not just making us laugh, right? You're making us think about why it is that we are laughing, right? I always tell people that whether you read Notes of Never to Be Seen or you watch any of Ken's YouTube videos or his Facebook videos, or you read his articles for the Jackson Free Press. I mean, you've been doing this a long time in different ways, but what always was at the core of your artistry was the inquisitive nature of what art can make us think about how we know the world.
right.
And that is at the core, right? Satire. And it was like with you, having the history of the griots, right? And the griots. What was funny is that, and just kind of take it back, just give it like a historical, I would say some of the first African American, not African, but African American satire. If you go back to the original minstrel shows. So the original minstrel shows, right? You begin with white people in blackface, right?
Right.
And you deal with, that's an example of white schizophrenia. So why do you say white schizophrenia? Well, white schizophrenia in that, so on the one hand, you got these white folks saying, we gonna make fun of black people, right? We gonna paint our face, right? And we gonna sing their songs and do their dances.
Yeah.
But what you're really doing is showing your admiration for the art that black people created, right? You really are admiring your slaves. But here's where the satire comes. Not long after that, you then get black artists in blackface. And what those black artists in blackface are doing, Ken, is that they are satirizing, they're making fun of the white people who are making fun of them.
Yeah.
And the minstrel show may have been the first time, and you can correct me on the history, the minstrel show may have been the very first time that something we do now that we don't think about. It may have been the first time that black people made fun of white people for not knowing how to dance.
Right.
So that notion, right, of where historically and culturally satire begins for African people in America, it was at its core a social political critique. Right. And so so that when you walked in to highlights that night, and you took command of the stage, man, and people, you were busting their gut, but much more than busting their gut, you were really stimulating their minds. And it just began, man, an artistic love affair with me, David Jolivet, with you, and with everybody in Mississippi with you. And we were so happy to have you in the state, man. And so, but you were, for us, right, you were our resident satirist.
Right.
In that, you were forcing us to look at very difficult issues And what humor does is that humor, it causes people to lower their walls of become more vulnerable, right? I'm more vulnerable if I'm laughing, right? If I'm not laughing, I'm not vulnerable, right? But so what you were able to do is to say, look at all this crazy social political foolishness that people do, right? And what I loved about you is that you didn't just give it to one side, right? Right. If you tune
Yeah.
in to the Ken Stigger show, it wasn't just gonna be Republicans was gonna get it. It was
Right.
gonna be anybody acting a fool was gonna get it. Which meant
Yeah, I remember doing Blacks Out of Order. You remember that?
Yeah. That's one of my favorite bits, man. I used to wait for the roll call. I said, oh, which one of them Negroes gonna get it this week? But again, that shows also your artistic integrity, right? So satire doesn't work without artistic integrity.
Right.
Because if I know that you're only going to give it to one group or one ideological slant or one political slant, then it's not really satire. Okay. It's only satire because truly to be intellectual is to be objective, right?
Right.
So you can't be subjective. See, to be subjective is to be emotional. To be objective is to be intellectual. So you can't really be a satirist if you're not objective, because the lack of objectivity means that you're being emotional. You're being slanted.
Oh, man. Yeah, because sometimes I see people use the word loosely, I think, if that's correct. And, sometimes people will say, do something or mock somebody, but, it's kind of like what I think mean-spirited.
Well, not only mean-spirited, it lacks the ability for us to engage intellectual insight, right? One of the things by which I live that relates to satire. Whenever I'm engaged, and I tell this to my students, right? I tell my students, whenever I'm about to engage in a conversation with anybody, I make three things really clear. Small minds discuss people, average minds discuss events, great minds discuss ideas. So the difference between satire, right, and joke telling, joke telling is about people and events. Satire is about conceptual ideas, right? What satire is designed to do is to not make us think about what people did, but to make us think about why people do what they do. So that in investigating that, we will cease with that foolishness, and then them Negroes won't have to be on the roll call every week.
Yeah, I think I did put folks on the roll call, didn't I?
Oh, no doubt. And but do you think about how powerful that is, man? And then folks were like, oh, I don't want to be on that.
Yeah, well, I remember, I think, while I was there in Mississippi, man, I remember, man, sometimes I would get little side eyes from people, man. Here he comes again.
Because again, what you would
or you were looking into my house or something like that, man. I said I wasn't. You weren't looking at their
house. They were putting their foolishness on Front Street, and because they were putting their foolishness on Front Street, you were forced to say, "Oh, look what you done did."
Hurt yourself.
There you go. But I mean, but it's taking the hurt yourself premise and applying it in a social political. So you got your poem "Hurt Yourself," which is more baseline comedy. But then even if you peel the levels of "Hurt Yourself," right? "Hurt Yourself" is really about personal inquiry of why do we overeat? Why do we, the fact that we're about to do something that we know we're going to regret after we do it.
After you do it, right, absolutely.
And so you can apply that to food, to alcohol, to drugs, to sex, to shopping, and then any of our other vices. But see, that was great. That's what's great about the type of art that you create, Ken, is that as a satirist, the top level is humor. The top level is funny. But when you peel that onion,
Yeah.
Get that funk off of it, as I say.
Yeah.
You know? Because you from that old school of blues and funk and reggae and good soul, right? That ain't no microwavable art, right? So you got that level, those levels and layers.
Yeah, thank you.
And when you peel them, man, it's always, I think about you and I think about reading like Invisible Man. I tell people that I'm 50, and so I probably first started reading Invisible Man when I was 14 or 15.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people that every time I return to Invisible Man, I learn something new.
Right.
And that's what great art is. And so every time I return to a Ken Stiglitz piece or to a good satire, because I put you, man, let me be clear, man, I'm putting you, you know, you with some of the great people who have done it, man. Whether it's Paul Mooney, whether it's the first 2 seasons of In Living Color, you know, and I'm not, and other people talk about, you know, so I'm not saying that the other seasons weren't, you know, but it's just those first 2 seasons of In Living Color, man. And I'm also thinking about our great griot, and I'm feeling bad because my mind is going blank. Our great griot comedian, who's also a social rights activist, Dick Gregory.
Yeah,
I mean,
Dick Gregory,
I can't think Ken Stiglitz and not think Dick Gregory. So that says to me the level of satire that you're creating, man. So that's why I'm calling you. I'm saying people need to go check out No To Never To Be Seen. People need to go check out the Ken Stiglitz YouTube, right? What the dancing? What's my dancing bits? The community dance,
community sing along.
Yeah, the community sing along, man. Where you would incorporate, right, all of the figures, right, but for a positive notion of this is how the community should be. So we laughing, but the overall message to that is, wouldn't it be wonderful if the community? Because when you think about all those different type of Black people you put in that video, you're really putting in there a lot of different Black ideologies.
Right.
And so, the community sing-along bits that you were doing were really bits about how communities should be able to have different ideologies.
Ideologies, right?
Yeah, and it, you know, it makes me think about Kofo, right? Because in thinking about Kofo, it thinks about the manner in which SNCC, NAACP, and CORE, those 3 very different organizations, were able to combine under one umbrella, all for the voting rights movement.
Right.
And that's really what the community sing-along for me. That's what you really sang in that bit.
Yeah. And I always had Jesse Jackson say, "A people united will never be defeated."
There you go.
Right? You know, so it's like, you know, that's why I like doing it. You know, I'm making suggestions and trying to get people to, you know, take that suggestion and maybe apply it. But some people take it too real, and, you know, say, you got the nerve, the audacity to say that or whatever. But I mean, I'm saying what I'm saying, but it's like a suggestion. I have a clip I want to show. Okay, and here's something, an example of you know, some satire. This is something from Langston Hughes, and it's from the Just Be Simple.
Yeah. See, that's yes, sir. That's excellent.
Yeah. So let's take a look at this, and then it's only about a minute, and I kind of pulled this clip from somewhere else here. So here we go, and I'm gonna play it.
Says, now that you all have got the Civil Rights Bill and the Supreme Court, Adam Powell,
Hold on.
Ralph Bunche in the United Nations, and Leontine Price singing in the Metropolitan Opera, plus Dr. Martin Luther King getting the Nobel Prize, what more do you want? I am asking you, just what does the Negro want? I am not the Negro, I said. I am me. Well, says my boss, you represent the Negro. I do not, I says. I represent my own self. Ralph Bunche represents you then, says my boss. And Thurgood Marshall and Martin Luther King, do they not? So far as I know, they do not even live in Harlem. I cannot find them in the telephone book. They all got private numbers. But since you say they represent the Negro, why do you not ask them what the Negro wants? I cannot get to them, says my boss. Neither can I said. So we both is in the same boat.
All right.
Brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's
And Langston Hughes wrote something years ago, and it still applies to today. There's probably countless numbers of African Americans who are confronted by what does the Negro want?
And what I loved about it was it's so wide ranging in that Hughes is doing a couple of things, right? So he's again, dealing with the schizophrenia of white supremacy, right? Because when a white person asks, what does the Negro want? What that statement is really implying is, I don't see you as human. Because again, if you saw me as human, you would have to ask what the Negro want, because you would know that we want to be completely equal as you.
Right.
So what you love about the Just Be Simple skit is that Just Be is flipping it, in that I'm going back to say the minstrel shows where the black people in blackface making fun of white people who thought they were making fun of black people. What Just Be Simple is really doing is flipping it, right, to show just how foolish, just how hypocritical this white man is by saying, I'm not really going to give your question any real serious thought. That's number one, right? I'm not going to waste my time giving you this long rhetorical response, because if you saw me as a human being, sir, then you would need to ask me, what does the Negro want? So that's number one. And then number two, what he does is, what I really love is, think about the types of black people that Langston evoked in that bit. They are black people of varying social political ideologies.
Right.
So what he's doing in a very subtle way is making sure to say to white people, if you really saw me as a human being, you wouldn't try to see all black people as a monolith. Hence, Just Be Simple notion of, I am me.
I am me, right.
And so the whole notion that, so you got the second part of that really brilliant bit, is, as all of the Just Be Simple bits are really brilliant, is that what Hughes is doing is evoking these various types of black people to say both to white people, but also what he's subtly saying to black people is, we ought not to get so obsessed with or sidetracked with a black person who may have a different social political ideology, as long as that different social political ideology is leading us all towards sovereignty and freedom. And so in just a minute, little over a minute, right? And I always tell my students that the best writers can say in 4 words what it takes the rest of us 14 words to say. So in just over a minute, Langston Hughes does 2 things. He exposes white supremacist schizophrenia. He also then celebrates the beauty of African people by celebrating the diversity of thought in our community, hence the brilliance of satire.
Right.
And just to give a shout out, and because I know you got other follow-up questions, but so that then leads us into somebody like an Aaron Magruder, who does the very same thing with Boondocks. And then there's this novelist, Paul Beatty, who has The Sellout, and his other novel is escaping me at the moment. But I mean, they are continuing in that tradition, right, of doing both things, exposing white supremacy as schizophrenia, but also painting African people, particularly Africans dislocated in America, or African Americans, if you so choose, in a way that our humanity is returned to us, because again, we're forced to be seen as individuals and not this class mindless mass.
Okay, there we go. So that's part one with Celie McGinnis, you know. And again, I thank him for, taking the time. I did that Friday morning with him, and that was actually my first Zoom conference. And I'm still trying to learn all this stuff, but I'm going to keep on practicing and become better. But basically, that's it. Talking satire.